This is an interview with Deborah Keisler, retiree from Elgin Community College of Elgin, Illinois. Deb was employed with Elgin Community College from 1993 to 2012 and made significant contributions to the college within the Visual and Performing Arts Center in its formative years and through the creation of the college's massage therapy program. This interview is being conducted on August 13th, 2018 at Elgin Community College. The interviewer is Polly Nash and the videographer is Jack Weiss. Welcome, Deb.
Thanks, Polly.
May we start out with just a little bit about you and your own history. When and where were you born?
I was born in Chicago. My parents lived there for 4 years. My dad was a vet, and so they bought a home out in Carpentersville in 1954. It was myself and my sister, Jeanette, who was 3 years younger. And we were in a Biesinger home. We were in District 300. So I went to District 300 schools. 2 more children followed after that. And my parents sold the home when they retired. They lived in that same home for 35 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Now, so you went to District 300.
Correct.
Was it the same district that we know now?
Well, it was smaller then.
Okay.
It was smaller, but I went to Meadowdale School for 1 through 3 and Fairview School 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
And for middle school, my parents they just wanted to make sure that we weren't lost in some sort of a middle school system. They didn't like the idea of you going off looking like you were a teenager when you were only 12. So I ended up going to St. Joe's in Elgin for a couple of years and then back to District 300 where I was in the first class of students that came into the new Irvin Crown High School.
I see.
So it was Irvin Crown High School. I entered, they had sophomores, so sophomore, juniors, seniors in 1965. And we were the first group of students going into Irvin Crown. The story is the workers were still walking around in hard hats, and we were walking around with school books. I don't think that could happen now,
Right.
but that was where I went to school.
So you were a sophomore.
Correct.
And did they have the freshman class there, or was
Well,
it
freshman
just
was in the middle school
middle
at that
school.
time.
So it was just the sophomore class.
Sophomore,
and then,
sophomore, junior, senior.
Senior.
There were 3 classes, so the first graduating class at Irvin Crown was 66,
Yes.
and we were 68.
Got it. And so after high school, what did you do?
I went away to Millikin University in Decatur
Okay.
and entered there just in liberal arts, probably with the hope of going into music education. And then came home actually after that. It was a strange year for budgeting in the state of Illinois, not that we don't know what that's about now, but the Illinois scholarships for some reason that year were cut short, and so I came back home and went to ECC.
Oh, you did?
I did. I went to ECC in 69 and 70.
And what did you study here?
I kind of finished up my liberal arts, and then after I was married and even having children, I went back to ECC, did more science classes, became very interested in science. Already had my associate's degree, but just kept piling stuff onto that, and that kind of took me where I eventually ended up here, even at ECC.
Right. So you graduated from ECC, and then what did you do?
I was married. I worked for Illinois Bell.
Okay.
I worked for Illinois Bell, which
And what did you do at Illinois Bell?
I was a service representative. If you were installing service, terminating service, changing, getting extension phones, did you want a princess phone or a trim line? That's what we did. I was
button
there,
or dial?
push button. Oh yeah, and back then, touch tone cost quite a bit more. But I was there 5 years and then had my first child and stayed home with my kids for, golly, I don't even know how long I was home. Close to 10 years, I guess, till the kids were a little bit older, and then I went back to work.
And then where did you go to work? Did you go back to Bell?
No, because I think Bell was changing already then.
Okay.
And the Illinois Bell office, there was a big one in Elgin. I worked in the smaller office in Dundee. No, I actually went to work at St. Joe's Hospital here in Elgin and was the evening supervisor for the volunteer department. And then, after 2.5 years, applied at Delnor Community and became the volunteer services manager at Delnor Community when they were still two separate campuses. And we were backing and forthing between two hospitals, and we're part of that team that, told the builders what, they called them users meetings, and we just helped to build the space, which was a great precursor to when we finally built new space here at ECC.
Right.
I knew all about user meetings and what people needed, so.
So you worked a lot with volunteers.
I
which
did.
Are like herding cats.
Yeah, well, yeah, but they're older cats, so they were calmer. They were, a lot. I think Delnor at the time, between the two hospitals, had close to 300-400 volunteers.
So that was in the healthcare.
Correct.
St. Joe's and Delnor.
Correct.
But you, at some point, decided to pursue your...
Going down to Geneva every day, and my youngest daughter, Claire, was still, she was, I'm going to say 12, 13, and it's true, the older they get, the more they need you. And it was traffic time, so I ended up, the Elgin Symphony was looking for a ticket office manager, and so I went to work for the Elgin Symphony. I had interacted with that group a lot because I had sung in the Elgin Choral Union for years. So I knew a lot of the people and went in and picked up that job and worked for the symphony for 2.5 years. They were in residence here at the college at the time. They were one of the in-resident ensembles. So before I ever worked here, I had an office here for about 2.5 years.
And then what?
They were building VPAC. They were building the Performing Arts Center. So I was doing the ticketing for the Elgin Symphony. There was no Performing Arts Center at ECC. The plan made by those who were in power to make the plans was that the college would then be absorbing the ticket office services from the symphony. So I had to either apply for my own job at VPAC or go looking for another job. So, I just applied for the job. And in 1993, I think in the late summer, was when that position was filled, and at that point became a full-time employee at the college, but was still doing Elgin Symphony ticketing, and that entailed things like, building the theater in the computer and numbering all the seats and selling subscriptions and selling single tickets and going over to Hemmons for their concerts, but having concerts here also at the college. So there were nights when both things were going on at the same time. So I would take off for Hemmons and leave staff here to take care of VPAC's concerts.
Now, was it the same ticketing system
Yes.
that the symphony used?
Yes. It was an excellent system. I mean, when we're talking 93,
Right.
it was a really good system.
So you were able then to...
I had the system, they installed it, then I just started building,
this new performing space or
Right,
spaces.
because we had the large theater, we had the black box, we actually built space over in the old auditorium in what was called ATC, and I don't know what building letter it is now, but so any place where we might have performances. One time we even had to ticket for the lobby here at VPAC because we had a Christmas concert here actually before the theater was finished. I mean, they were still installing seats and hanging curtains and lights and sound system. So the ECC choir performed on the staircase in the lobby. And it was beautiful because that space is so big and the acoustics are fun. So we programmed, 300-400 seats and set up chairs and had a Christmas concert there, the Christmas of '93.
So, and that was before even the official grand opening of the center.
It was. But it seemed a shame not to start bringing people in, which was really the goal. I think something about arts right in your backyard was one of the first themes that we worked on when we had our brochures go out, and it's right here. And ECC added a jewel to what Elgin already had in terms of performing arts and music and theater.
So who was in the VPAC staff either when you were hired or right after you were hired?
Well, actually, Bob Hansen was already here because he was with the Elgin Symphony, and he became more like an artistic director. Randy Green kind of ran the whole Performing Arts Center. He did the programming for our seasons. He was an excellent programmer. Cindy Gaspardo, who I think is still here.
Still here.
And Cindy is the technical director. We had a gallery curator, a young woman who, I can see her face, but I can't think of her name. And I think she actually went to the Art Institute after she left us. And let's see, we had to do things like hire someone to coordinate the volunteers that would usher and things. And so in the beginning, I think maybe the first couple concerts I was doing that, and then we hired someone part-time, and we began to steal people from Hemmons. So, so Laura Schaefer, who is also still here, took that on. I don't know, I can't remember exactly if she had other things to do, but she was in charge of all the volunteers, keeping track of their hours and making sure all the houses for whatever shows were being done had volunteers to staff them. And then eventually, Mary Hatch, who is also still here and is now a dean.
Yes.
Yeah, she came in with a big educational and theater background, so she was somewhat underemployed when we hired her. But she is now a dean here. But she was from Hemmons at the time also.
So with this new Performing Arts Center, the college had this wonderful opportunity to do a lot of things that before they had not been able to do.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about, at least one interesting event that you were
Well, besides
involved
the grand opening, which was called Art a la carte, all of the events in the first, I would say even first year or so, were meant to pull in as many people with diverse interests as they could. We had family programming, we had children-specific programming, we had classical programming, we had theater, we had comedy theater, we had musical theater. So we really tried to pull in as many people as possible, and that's what Art a la carte was all about, looking at all the different spaces and potential for those spaces. But one of the things that we did that was not necessarily ticket-oriented was opening our space in, I'm thinking it was probably, in the early spring of '94 that we had something called Afternoon for Peace. Randy had us brainstorming what could we do to open up the doors, bring people in, and so I guess it was just something close to my heart that I just said, why don't we have something that we might call Afternoon for Peace? And we must have brought in close to 30, 40, for lack of a better term, vendors. We had people from the soup kitchen and pads. We had people from the Community Crisis Center. We had just all sorts of people whose reason to be in this, in this area was to help other people. And we just set up booths and things, and we actually served a soup kitchen supper to anybody who came. The soup kitchen came, and they brought big crock pots and whatever, and at a certain given time, we actually served like a soup kitchen supper to anyone who came. We contacted organizations in the city. There was one that was, a group that was about gun violence and all the statistics, and it was really wonderful. We had, there's a museum in the city, or a gallery called the Peace Museum. We contacted them, and they lent us a beautiful collection of artwork from singers and dancers or other artists whose main focus was on, just us being all kinder to each other. It was just really great, and it was a big afternoon. We even got Ben and Jerry's, to donate ice cream, because they were doing that at that time. I think they were kind of breaking into this market then, but I think they're still doing it, where if you have a cause, they just send out these freezers full of ice cream bars, and it was really wonderful. And we had all ages. Yeah.
So you utilized a lot of the resources of the communities that we serve.
Absolutely.
And was there anything that it was original that was created for this afternoon?
Yes, as a matter of fact, because I was still closely connected to the symphony, one of their employees, a young man, his name was Jim, and he had actually written something that he was calling the Peace Opera. So I got together a bunch of people from Choral Union, and he taught it to us, and we performed it that night on stage. So I guess we did utilize ticketing information. It's pretty much a general admission theater, and he got some symphony players, and we did this original opera of his. It was really a wonderful day.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
And when you're in the formative period in the creation of a new center, you are also you have the ability to set the tone for procedures and policies in that facility. Can
Right.
you talk about your role in some of that?
Well, there's always those who go before. So, you kind of network with other places that have theaters and ticket office managers. I belong to an organization, and like the ticketing managers from the Lyric and CSO and, all these places. And then you would just brainstorm about things that work best. And we're a small theater, a small performing arts center. So we were able to pick and choose those things that would work best for us. But always having volunteers as your ushers, that was really a wonderful thing. Other than that, did you have something in mind?
Well, I was thinking about, since although the college did have performances,
Correct.
we had plays, and the college had little art shows and things like that.
Right.
We never really had a center that was going to do things in the weekend. And
Yeah,
all that.
we were open 7 days a week, and that I think that was probably a big change for the college too. Some of the funnier stories is we had very, very sacred ground office meetings, department meetings every single week, because we would review what had happened the previous week, change and help to correct anything that might have gone wrong, and then what's coming up and how are we going to be doing this. The ticketing system we had was able to classify every single show as to whether it was family-oriented, kid-oriented, musical theater. You just named the genre, and then all of the people who had bought tickets were put on those lists. In the beginning, we were sending out postcards, for everything. Everything was mailing. There wasn't a lot of online stuff in the beginning at all. And so we did a lot of that. I worked hand in hand with the marketing department so that if we were doing a Hubbard Street dance, which we did many years in a row in the beginning, anyone who expressed an interest in dance or classical music, or if it was family-oriented, or if they were going to be doing a holiday show, people who liked holiday shows, we were able to put these people on lists and make sure that they got the notification for these shows. And we had our local groups. We had our obvious college groups that were credit classes, our in-resident ensembles, but Randy did the programming for the professional groups. Our very first concert in February of '94 was the Vienna Choir Boys.
Right.
Yeah, that was wonderful. And it was storming, and it was snowing, and it was getting closer and closer to curtain, and they still weren't there. And we saw the bus pull around about 7:20 for an 8 o'clock show, and it was pretty scary because we were all there and wondering, oh my gosh. And I'm trying to think if we even had cell phones much back then. Not much if we did, and be in touch with them. But they got on stage and it was marvelous. I mean, Vienna Choir Boys, it seemed like a big deal for us. And then Hubbard Street Dance, always. We've had Janice Ian, and we've had Don McLean, and and we did good theater, really good theater. There were times we talked about doing West Side Story on the musical stage and then doing Romeo and Juliet in the small theater,
Right.
Or doing Taming of the Shrew and Kiss Me, Kate. To be able to have people take a look and see at how classical literature can morph into musical theater.
Right.
And it was, we did a lot of brainstorming. But the funniest story, I had digressed there, was that the first weekend that we were open, the staff meeting that next Tuesday morning was, we got to make sure the housekeepers aren't cleaning the bathrooms during intermission. But because in a college, they're used to going in and cleaning bathrooms like around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, because then students are mostly gone. So they just showed up in the bathroom at 9 o'clock to clean, and intermission happened at like 10 to 9. So, and eventually we were able to do a real coordination with housekeeping. We had one of their staff actually come to all of our staff meetings, which was a good coordination of service. He was a really sharp young guy. And, anything that we needed, he knew how to make it happen in his department. All we would have to say is, this is what we need and this is how we need it. And he'd go, I know how to do that.
We know how to do that.
Yeah, so it was absolute coordination. You can't you can't pull off what we pulled off over there without complete coordination. Everyone from the people who clean the bathrooms to the ushers at the door, and keeping the parking lots clean when it snows like a banshee outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it is working in collaboration and
Absolutely.
cooperation with a lot of different
Absolutely.
offices to make it happen.
Absolutely. Always.
So at some point, you decided to
Go to massage therapy school.
Yes, so tell us about that. How
did that happen?
how did
Yeah.
that happen?
I don't know. It's something I thought I'd always wanted to do. And I think at one point I had explored going down to Chicago School of Massage Therapy, but the thought of going down to classes a couple times a week and clinics down to the city, that's a haul. So I actually, at that point then, started to explore the community colleges who had programs, and Kishwaukee had a program. Is that right? Yes, out in DeKalb area. But they were full all the time. I think I tried 3 different entry times, and they couldn't take anyone from out of district.
Okay.
Because their program was filling up. So I ended up at a private school in Sycamore, Northern Prairie School of Massage and Healing, and got my certificate there in 1999.
While you were still
Working full-time here.
full-time here.
Yeah, working full-time here, and then going to school 2 nights a week and all day Saturdays. And of course, the Saturdays was a big theater night, so I'd get home from theater or from school, change my clothes and brush my teeth, and end up back here by 6 o'clock in order to get a box office ready. But it was good experience for when I became the manager or of the director of the massage therapy program, because people would come and say, I work full time. I said, I did too. Well, I have children. Well, I did too, and still do. And I would say to them, you can do anything for a year. And that kind of became my mantra. You can do anything for a year. You can do anything for a year. You have to elicit support from your family and friends. You have to let them know what you're doing and why you're doing it. So then it was my job to find out why they wanted to do it. But that didn't happen overnight, because you don't become a director of a program just because you graduate from massage school.
So how did that happen? How did it, from your being a massage therapist to the college making a decision to develop a program?
Once I got my certificate, then instead of going to school 2 nights and on Saturday, I started working for a chiropractor 2 nights a week and all day Saturdays, and doing this still full time. And one of the deans from community education, was that what it was called
Yes,
at that time?
right.
Community, Stu Wasilowski, devious little guy, just came up to me and said, "Hey, Deb, you're a massage therapist, right?" And I said, "Yeah." I'm thinking he wants to make an appointment for himself or his wife, And he said, "I think we're going to start a massage school." And I said, "Good for you." He said, "No, I think we're going to start a massage school." And I said, "Oh, no. I've only been a massage therapist 2 years." He goes, "No, you can do that." I said, "No. I already got this really good gig here. I love musical theater. I like VPAC." He came back 3 times. And of course, he kind of pulled me in by saying, "Well, who can I talk to about starting a massage school?" So I had these people that he should be talking to. And I eventually said hi. I said yes to him. I did.
So things were never the same.
No,
after that.
No, the first year was crazy because, and I don't know why this happened, and only Stu would know. I stayed working for VPAC and started the massage program. So I was working my 40 a week at VPAC and putting in about another 20, 25 hours a week developing the program. And we really needed more time, but we didn't have it, and I've never been known to be really wise about the deep end of the pool, because I think I can swim. So we jumped in the deep end. They already had people registered to take the introduction class. And so I started teaching the introduction class. And luckily I discovered another passion, and probably more than I realized, a personal strength in really loving teaching and education. So we developed a program, and that was in 2001, perhaps. 2001. Brought in the first class. They had to take an introduction to massage therapy. And through that class, they kind of got a taste of everything. They learned a little science, they learned a little ethics, they learned a little business. And the first night of class, they had their hands on other people's bodies. So that it wasn't, once again, we didn't ease them into the water. We dropped them in the deep end, but we did put floaties on them because they didn't have to, and some of them said, this is too hard. And we said, we understand. Does it have to be this hard? Oh, yeah. And so those that could make it through and wanted it, and our first class was, it was pretty golden.
Yeah.
It really drew out some of the best students that we've had. I mean, I can name students throughout the whole time, but, we had some really great students. Some of whom are, we're talking about 17 years ago or 16 years now since they graduated. They still have big active businesses. One of them is now running the program. One of them is transferred out of state, but she's teaching in the state she moved to, teaching at their conferences, and good stuff, really good stuff.
Good. We can certainly talk about some of those
Yes,
individuals
absolutely.
too. But talk to us about what was your overriding philosophy as you were developing this program?
I think it came from the school that I attended, Northern Prairie.
Mm-hmm.
The woman who ran the school, her name was Jeanette Volpel. And Jeanette was a career nurse. And she said, there's got to be more to healing than what we see traditionally from a Western medicine perspective. Though our sciences were very well grounded and very book oriented, she really had this thing that she instilled in us about the real sanctity of touching someone else's body, and tied to that sanctity was understanding their body, understanding the physiology, the anatomy of it. So what I did was kind of break it down. It's not original, I'm sure, but because we started in community ed, we weren't as tethered to state regulation as if we had gone straight into credit, which actually would have taken us probably about 2 years. Mm-hmm. But instead, we got it up and running in like 3-4 months. But it worked. And what we did was everything that we printed out, I went to marketing and I said, I want to create a logo. Well, programs don't create logos. I'm not a program. and academic side made it very clear, you are not a program. And I said, okay. So we called it massage therapy. What did we call it? I don't know. Massage therapy at Elgin Community College. We couldn't use the word program.
Okay.
So one of the graphic artists in marketing created a little logo for us. And I said, every time that logo is printed, underneath it in this kind of script, I want it to be written, learning to touch body, mind, and spirit. And that was the underlying philosophy of the program, learning to touch body, mind, and spirit. So our curriculum was based very much on that too. Very strong in the clinical body work, educationally very deep. 2 semesters of anatomy and physiology, a semester of pathologies. They had to take business classes. We had our 3rd semester was Oriental and energetic medicine, so we went into that side that's not fully understood all the time by Western medicine. And then the spiritual side that we encouraged our students to learn to become more spiritually centered. You can't be touching someone else's body if you don't know what yours is about. You can't be possibly even igniting something in them. Touch is such a powerful thing that you might have someone on your table start to cry. And you can't be afraid of that. You have to learn that that's their stuff. You protect yourself. How do you protect yourself and still be a useful vehicle for them to get not only good body work, but maybe to emotionally process what's going on in their own psyche. So we talked about all those things. We had to talk about, ethics, and we had to talk about the difference between something being sensual and something being sexual. And that became a challenge, as our program grew. We started attracting more 18-year-olds. They'd graduate from high school, and their parents would pay for, that program. In the beginning, most of our students, I think our average age in the first class was probably around 40, maybe 35. But then we get a class where there's an 18-year-old and there's a 60-year-old, and their knowledge of their own bodies and their own experiences in the world were very different. So we as instructors had to just learn how to give those talks without embarrassment, What do you do if someone touches you? What do you do if something what you view as inappropriate happens? And so we talked about always having someone nearby and always having a mentor with whom you can talk. And it's one of the things why it's nice to work in an office, because you have someone, either a doctor or other therapists, and how to run your business,
Right.
how to present yourself.
So you had 3 prongs.
Correct.
To your program.
Correct.
All of them sort of equal.
Yes.
In importance.
Absolutely.
And how does that differ, as you understand it, from other programs?
I'm not sure it does differ. There are probably I think every program has to touch those elements, every program. I think there are programs that are much more academic and clinical. And I've had massages from their graduates. And I think they're different from the massages that we taught our students to do, in that our students, in our first class, we had a nurse and we had a PT, a physical therapist. And they came in knowing the science, they knew the kinesiology, they knew the anatomy and physiology, they knew the pathologies, they knew more sometimes than we did, and so they were invaluable to us in making sure that we covered what they thought we needed as they moved into another part of their career. But the interesting thing is, as the program evolved, the body, mind, and spirit, and this is where I'll drop names from our first class, we also developed a mentoring program for students. As they approached graduation, they were able to apply to become teaching assistants. And it was announced at graduation, and it was a big deal. And we had our own private graduation because we were not a program, we were our own entity. And so we had people who were really good in science want to work for the A&P and the pathology teachers, and people who were really good at body work who wanted to work in the clinical setting, and then maybe students who were really good at business or possibly even like the energetic or Eastern things. And we always found the right people, and out of that group came Lorana Bain, who now runs the program. She took over after I retired, and Amy Tortorisi. We used to say, and I didn't even think of it this way, I think one time one of them said it, but when we talked to body, mind, and spirit, we said, it's like Amy, Lorana, and Deb. Because we represented those 3 things. Anytime we would have discussions, Lorana always was talking about mind and the education and the book learning, and Amy was the PT that was in our program, and so the body work to her was it was second nature, and she's one of the best body work instructors I've ever seen. And then I was always trying to keep our students centered and grounded and learning how to integrate all those pieces. Mm-hmm. And so that was fun.
So you had the triumvirate of people.
We had a triumvirate of people. We were the unholy trinity.
At some point, the decision was made to move from non-credit to a credit program.
Correct.
Can you talk about that progression?
It was driven from several different aspects. One of which was Kishwaukee, Waubonsee, some of the, Illinois Central, College of Lake County, they all had credit programs. And Harper did not have credit. Theirs was non-credit. As a matter of fact, they came and visited us in our second year and took our curriculum with them with our blessing, because we had already had a really good curriculum. And I said, if you're going to have a good program, you've got to touch on all these things. And so people would come to us and say, what if I want to get a degree with this? What if because the rad techs and the surge techs and phlebotomists and nursing, though nursing is a much larger program, they come out with an associate's degree in science. So we started looking at that. In a way, the needs and wants of the students were part of that. Plus, I felt a real need to elevate not the integrity of our program, because I think our program had a great deal of integrity, but kind of how it was viewed in the community. Mm. We still had, I remember one time approaching human resources at the college and saying, there are companies that during employee appreciation days, they, either raffle off or give off, coupons for their employees to get massages. and then you pay for them. Because I wouldn't want to do that with our students. They're really not in the position to do that. We had student clinics. I said, but by this time I had plenty of graduates who would come back, and he said, well, how do I know they're good therapists? And I said, because they graduated from our program, that's how I know. And so that was one of those things that kind of hit me between the eyes and went, oh my God, among my own peers, there are people who don't believe that what we're doing is valuable. I personally think, and I know the vast majority of therapists that I know think that massage therapy is really a part of wellness care.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you're an athlete, you know when you need a massage, but even on a daily basis, you know, just people who work in their gardens, who bike, the stress of daily living, I think massage therapy is a part of wellness care. And that's, we always asked our students, if you could project into the future, what would you want to see the profession look like? And, you know, they all had their one thing, and my thing, because I had to think about it too, is I want to see almost every doctor's office have a massage therapist. There's no excuse for OB-GYNs not to have a massage therapist. There is no excuse for an orthopedic practice not to have a massage therapist. They can send them off to PT, but PT is very different from massage therapy.
Right.
You know, I think I had students that wanted to partner with psychiatrists and psychologists because their background, their life experience said, I want to help people who've been traumatized. I want to work with children. You know, and there was a lot of talk about autism and, you know, the role that massage might play in that. Towards the end of my tenure here, we developed a big program to work with veterans. Now I noticed that this month in the American Massage Therapy Journal, they had a big article on working with veterans. I thought, we did that back in 2011, you know. But you know, there's all sorts of things, and you know, sometimes they're very physically oriented. You know, athletes, they've got sore muscles or strains, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're working with women in the crisis center or in the shelters.
Did your program, the non-credit program, easily transfer over into a credit program, or did you need to make some changes?
We probably tweaked a little, but the one thing that we did have was we had applied to be nationally accredited by the Commission on Massage Therapy Association. It's called COMTA. And they basically, we did everything for our accreditation that we needed to do to go to credit in the college. So we had to also educate our students. Our program is accredited, but no, this is not college credit. Because we were still on the non-credit side. You had to graduate 4 classes before you could begin to apply for national accreditation. So we did that, and before we ever went credit side of the house, we were nationally accredited. And so when we went to the curriculum committee and they said, this is what we need, we simply took the forms that the college had, which we basically had kind of been using anyway, about, you know, titles and objectives and all the learning objectives and outcomes and, you know, all those things. We already had that because of COMTA. So it was just a matter of sitting through the meetings and answering the questions. And some of those, even among our peers, there were raised eyebrows, you know, about why we would do this. And then I said, you know, because we're about the only community college in the whole state that doesn't have a credit program.
Right. From its very beginning, you have done a lot of outreach.
Yes.
And can you talk about some of that?
Yeah, outreach is actually, this is one of those tweaking things that eventually we used outreach as one of the credit classes. We used to just say, oh, you get more hours if you do Relay for Life, or if you do the Foxtrot, the marathon over Memorial Day. We'd have teachers unions calling us, can you do Teacher Appreciation Day? We've partnered with Elgin Mental Health Center and gone to conferences that they held here in Elgin and worked on people who had mental illnesses and were coming to a conference to get support and whatever. And so that also brought us to a point of bringing in one of their employees talking to us about mental health. And so we had some classes where those things fit in really easily. So when we were writing the learning objectives and the outcomes and all that stuff for the credit side, we had to leave some of that open. For example, we might bring in someone from Elgin Mental Health Center. We might bring in someone from the Crisis Center. We might bring in someone from ECHR, mental health, addictions, and understanding that, because our people graduating from massage therapy need to know about those things. Those are the people who will be calling you, or their family members. So we also encouraged our students to have resource files. In the business class, one of the things I would have them do is, this week I want you to bring in 5 resources for pregnancy, and then next week 5 resources for mental health, or addictions, or domestic abuse, or violence, or whatever. So they were building resources. But community outreach became an actual credit class. Eventually they had to do so many hours, and we would have sign-up sheets, and they had to get them before they graduated.
And you all, as part of the entire curriculum, you also had the clinicals.
Correct. And clinics started 6 weeks after the program started. So they were 6-week-old students, and the first semester that was just 30 minutes. And we would tell the patients, or the clients that would come, we'd say, okay, this week we're working on legs, and next week we're working on upper back and arms, and because they would learn their body as they went. Mm-hmm. And so that as we got to the last, I think we had 10 weeks of clinics. Last 2-3 weeks we might go to 45 minutes so they can incorporate more. And then hour massages second semester, and hour massages third semester. And third semester the students ran the clinics. They ran them themselves. We did the scheduling because they weren't around to schedule, but they called their clients, they set everything up, they ran the business office, so they took in the money and gave out receipts and made appointments for future clinics, so that they would have the business experience of doing that.
Right. But
they had their hands on patients from almost the very beginning, because they were working with each other from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And then our clinics were always filled. I loved it. Elgin gave us great support.
You talked about some special populations, mm-hmm. and mental health,
yes.
and veterans,
yes.
and pregnancies. Are there other kinds of things that you incorporate, other special populations that you incorporated?
Well, kind of named the population, and we at least touched on it. Some of it might have just been read this or whatever, but when we did we also had a class that was designed for a student to work for 6 weeks with one person, so that they could see, and that we had patients with cystic fibrosis come in. Mm-hmm. We had patients who were diagnosed with PTSD. We would have pregnancy people come in. Trying to think, we would have veterans, and they would research what it is that their patient was presenting with, and then they would be able to say that they can document that weekly massages do impact the amount of stress and anxiety that, say, someone with PTSD has. Or if they were working with a pregnant woman, they would say that they could document based on palpating the body or just what the patient told you, that if you are working with a pregnant woman, they will have less edema, their ankles won't swell, they'll have less low back pain if they get weekly massages.
So it was, they would study this case and see the impact
Correct.
Of
Correct.
massage therapy on the progress that this client was making.
Absolutely, and this was a third semester class where they actually had one person they saw every week for 6 weeks.
So programs that prepare individuals for careers in community colleges typically have advisory committees. Mm-hmm. Did yours have one?
Yes, we did have an advisory committee. We actually gathered our advisory committee while we were going through the accreditation, the CompTIA process. Mm-hmm. So we kept that committee appraised of what we were doing, and they gave us suggestions. So as we moved to credit, that was a really important role of the advisory boards. We had current students, we probably had 2 of each, current students, graduates. one or two faculty members. We had 2 or 3 chiropractors from the area. We had business owners, one perhaps a spa setting, and then in 2000, I want to say maybe it was 4 or 5, is when Massage Envy kind of entered our area, and we were all very skeptical. We had no idea what Massage Envy was about. So we started investigating, and we actually ended up with 2 Massage Envy owners on our board. Mm-hmm. And that was good because then we had really business, profit-motivated business owners, on our board. Mm-hmm. And I always had said to our students that perhaps a chiropractor would be the best place to work for the first 6 months of your career. I was a bit prejudiced about that because that's what I did, and I found it was invaluable having a doctor to whom you could go and, if you encountered something in your massage, you could ask the doctor about it, or they would give you information, and then you would work with your hands to do what they wanted you to do before they saw the patient. So having someone from Massage Envy was like, tell us what you want. What do you want your students to know? What do you want? And it was funny because they said, we want to make sure they know how to do a massage in 50 minutes, And of course, we focused everything on about an hour. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of fun because there are some students that clip, they were done in like 49 minutes. And then we had a student that goes, well, I'm not done till I'm done, And he says, well, you can't go work at Massage Envy then. Which brings me to another thing about the program that I really enjoyed was at graduation each year, we would award students, 3 students, a monetary amount that would pay for their national boards. And they would get their award in body, mind, or spirit.
Oh my goodness.
And it was, body would be the person who showed the most dedication in the clinical classes, someone who was an excellent practitioner at the table or helped others to become better practitioners at the table. Mind would be your best student, someone who really shone in the academics. And then spirit was always a bit more ephemeral, of course, and it was the student who brought a real spirit to the program, the spirit that we saw as what we wanted our graduates to go out there in the community with. A kindness, a compassion, maybe a sense of humor. And so each year, we would sit for the week before graduation, or actually 2 weeks usually, and take a look at, who would we, buy, and sometimes they just rose to the top.
Right.
And sometimes it was hard. Mm-hmm. And I think over the years it was very varied. Because the year that the student got the body award was the student who said to me, well, the massage isn't over till it's over. So she didn't want to keep that to 50 or 55 minutes. But she was an excellent body worker. Mm-hmm. And then, so that was one of the other things that we instituted that I don't know if anybody else does it, but it was really meaningful to me.
Right. So you're talking about your students and recognizing those special traits
Mm-hmm.
of many of your students. And then at an earlier part of our interview, you mentioned that in the very beginning you had older students and then you started attracting the 18, 19-year-old students. Can you talk generally about, over the course of your leadership in the massage therapy program, how students changed?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a good question. We always had information evenings. We would announce them when we still had written catalogs. I don't know how they do it now or if they do it now. But, they'd bring their families, they'd bring their kids. So I met a lot of spouses and children in those early days of people who were potential students. And then we do the introduction classes. And one of the first things I would do in the introduction class is we would sit down, we'd go around and who are you and what do you do in the world and tell me why you want to be a massage therapist. And I always say, I start. So I tell them how old I was. And I told them how old I was. I was almost 50 when I got my certificate in massage. And so, I'd say, if you're 45 and you're thinking you're too old, I don't think you are, but, you know your body. So then I'd say, okay, now I want you to think about your group of friends and telling them that you were coming to this class. How many of you experienced this? I'm going to massage therapy school. And the response would be, oh, massage therapy school. And in the beginning, I would say over three-quarters of the class would raise their hand. Ah, massage therapy school. Towards the end of my tenure, which was like 12 years later, you might have one person raise their hand, and it was generally an older person. Because they were still carrying that, what people thought of massage therapy if they were older. So if I saw anything change, it was massage starting to get more into the mainstream. It's not massage parlors. And we would talk language. This that you do your massage on, this piece of equipment is called a massage table. You make up your massage table. You never call it a bed, ever. It's a massage table. And we got, as faculty, got used to, if you heard somebody say bed, you just yell across the room, table! You know? And then we would do it all the time. Someone would say bed, you go, table! No, I'm talking about putting my kids to bed. You know? Stop it, that's a table. Put your kids to table. And so that changed because I think massage moved more into the mainstream. I think I have had clients, I run a small practice in my home. Now I'm retired from here, but I'm not really retired. And I'm getting more referrals from doctors. Not specifically to me, but the doctor will say, I think you need a massage. And they'll go, And either I know them or they know someone that is a client of mine, and that's how they end up on my table. Because I think people are starting to recognize massage as part of wholeness care, wellness care, and just being well-rounded. And that's probably one of the biggest changes I've seen, is that we don't fight as much. And we are not masseuses, we are massage therapists. And there was a fight about we should be calling ourselves therapeutic massage professionals. I said, that's just way too long. I'm a massage therapist. Sometimes I say licensed massage therapist, because we are all licensed. You cannot call yourself a massage therapist in the state of Illinois without a license. So we're all licensed. We have to have continuing education.
And so your program prepares the students
For
to sit
licensure.
for the licensing
Exam. Yeah, when it changed in the last couple years that I was working, but when I first was working and when I was graduating from school, there was one place you took the exam. It was the National Certification for Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork. It was a national program or a national exam. You took the exam, it was all on the computer, you typed in your answers, you hit the done button, and in 10 seconds it said pass or fail, which is really nice when it says pass. But you know right away, you don't have to wait.
And how did your students do on that?
Excellent. They really did. I think on an annual basis, the lowest rating we may have gotten was 96% pass. The national average was like 67%. And 1 year in the state of Illinois, the average was like 57%.
Of people completing a program of
and
study.
completing a program, taking the exam, and passing. So we had there was 1 year where 99% of our students passed. And then you kind of get a little bit into the politics of, did they go for just 1 year or did they have to go longer than that? And you look at your screening process. Are you bringing students in who can pass your program? And that was a challenge in the beginning. We had different agencies in the county that would operate with or work with people who needed jobs or were transitioning from homelessness to having a home, to needing a job. And they would call and say, hey, we've got some money, we can send this student to you to become a massage therapist, because they give a really good shoulder rub. And I would say, great. So tell me about your student. Can they make it through 2 semesters of anatomy and physiology and kinesiology and a semester of pathology? And they went, oh, maybe not. It's not rubbing shoulders. It's not just, though we did do some community ed classes,
And rubbing shoulders.
And rubbing shoulders. Really, we did. Even once our program was started, through the community ed department, we would do massage, couples massage. And sometimes it was married people, sometimes it was 2 girlfriends who came in, or somebody might come in with one of their kids. And we'd teach people how to do basic massage on shoulders and arms and legs and hands and head. And it was a wonderful community ed program, but it's not licensing. Our licensing is I trembled when I had to take mine. But, we prepared them. They were ready.
Right.
So,
As you were creating this program, or I should say in the early years of this program, the college was going through a lot of growing and building
correct.
new buildings and moving programs around.
Yeah.
So you were in the North Annex.
The North Annex. And I said to Stuart, we have to have massage, like, I hate to call them stalls, but little rooms. And no hard walls. We'll put up some sort of draping materials. But we have to have something about 7 by 10, a hook to hang clothes on, and blah, 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 and all these things that we needed. And he's just so darn clever. He said, I know, we can use PVC pipe to build these massage rooms. And so, those big round things that they either put water or sand in, we put those on the corners of everything and filled them with water. We had, oh gosh, I know we had Felix helping us. We had people from housekeeping. You were helping us, Polly. And it was 6 weeks after we started, so it was like the last weekend of September, and you know how hot it can be. It was hotter than Hades. We were in the North Annex, and that was at a time when they were shutting down the air conditioning in those buildings because there were no classes on Saturdays, but there were. And we built those massage stalls. We ordered shower curtains from Overstock.com, packages and packages and packages. And we would just hang them from the PVC pipe. And it was really kind of fun because then we would shut the lights off in the room, and we had lamps going, so it gave you that ambient glow. And so it looked kind of like a spa-like setting, but it was still fairly clinical. And because it was a class, there was an instructor, and she was the clinical supervisor, and that person would come and go into every room, checking on what the student was doing, and the clients on the table did an evaluation of each student. We did charge a little money for them. Most of the schools did. I think we charged $10 a massage, and that money all went back into the program when we were credit side, or when we were non-credit side, community ed, to help defer costs. And it was pretty wonderful. That was years 1 and 2 that we put up PVC and shower curtain rooms. And then the third year, and this is before we were nationally accredited, we had 33 students, and we had no space to do that. So Stuart goes, I know what to do. And he rented 2 storefronts in Charlestown Mall in St. Charles. And we took our PVC pipe and our people from ECC went down with us. They took the big trucks with all the equipment, and we set it up there in two storefronts, and one of the storefronts had the business office set up, and people came into the mall and they got massages, and people would walk by and go, what is this? And they would sign up for a massage for the next weekend. And that was a different population to be down there in St. Charles. Mm-hmm. We had great response from Elgin, Dundee, Carpentersville, South Elgin. But when we went down to St. Charles, it was very interesting. We did pick up more clients from down there. Right. Many of them don't even know that they're part of District 300 necessarily, or that or not 300, D509.
Right.
But they didn't know we had a massage program.
Because those were in the early years.
That was that was year number 3.
Right.
And then then as we progressed, I don't remember what year we moved, but we moved over into the ATC building. Mm-hmm. And the modern marvels of what they can do with buildings and taking down walls and putting up walls. And again, we had a big room and then a nice office setup, and we had the ability to do classroom in there, and then the massages. And I think we may still have been using PVC pipe. I don't remember, to tell you the truth. But then the great thing was, as we went forward, and because the imperative was there both from the community and my own need to bring the program to the next and highest level, and they were going to be building a health professions building.
Right.
And that takes us to the final era in my tenure, and that was building the health professions building. Once we became a credit program, we were brought under the wing of health professions.
Right.
And that was pretty wonderful.
And so tell me your thinking for the new facility and how you, what kinds of thoughts you had and how you created that.
We shot for the moon. We really did. It was a new building. The only thing we didn't get was a therapy pool, because both physical therapy and us, and we thought a therapy pool would be great. There are massage techniques that are done in water, so it's really kind of cool, and they're very different. There's a technique called Watsu, and it's water, and it's kind of like shiatsu, so you're moving someone gently in water but touching pressure points in their body. And of course I had to go have a treatment to see what it was like, and it was pretty wonderful. And I know PT thought a therapy pool would be great too, and that just was like, it was deep sixed before all the suggestions were out of our mouth. Yeah, no. So, but what we did get is, I knew that I wanted a big clinic where we could always have a classroom, and I knew that I wanted soft-sided clinical space for doing body work, but not PVC pipe and shower curtains. So, we measured it all out, and it's all ceiling mounted, and but I also wanted a separate practice clinic, because we were starting to run daytime and evening programs. So I wanted the different classes to be able, whether it was daytime or evening, even if there was a class in the big clinic, that they had a small clinic where they could actually go and practice. And then we would be around, which was nice, because if they were practicing, they could come to us and say, I really forgot how you told us to do this, or show me how to do that draping, which would be the way to cover a body when you're not working on different parts of the body. They're always covered. And then we needed a storage room, so we have a nice storage room, and we store tables and massage chairs, and we store linens, and we store all the different bodywork things have different things. I mean, we, honest to gosh, use blow-up pool floaties, the long rafts for one of the cranial sacral work, and so we bought all of these, and then you have to pat them down, fold them up, and put them on a shelf when we're not doing cranial sacral work. We bought exercise balls, because that's one of the other things we taught our students was self-care. And I don't know if it's still being done, but we always had one day of yoga a week. And it was cool because in our first class, along with Lorana and Amy, we had Natalie Pendergrass. And Natalie is still practicing, very successful massage therapist, and I think she's still teaching in the program. And she came to me because I wanted to do something to begin the bodywork class. She said, I'm a yoga instructor. I said, then you're going to teach us yoga. So she would come to class every Saturday morning prepared to teach about half-hour yoga class. And then when she was no longer a student, we started paying her to do it. And so we would do yoga. And then we had exercise balls, and we would teach balance and core strength and things you can do on an exercise ball. So the storage room was really important. And then the pièce de résistance was a private massage room in case a student was having quite a bit of trouble and needed special help, or maybe somebody would come in and they just couldn't do the clinical, the public space. And then we had 2 wet spa rooms, because my dream was to get a spa certificate going, that whether someone was a graduate of our program or not, that they needed to be a licensed massage therapist, and then we do a separate certificate for spa. So we would teach everything from, we have 2 wet rooms. There, you can do massages on these tables, and there's warm water that flows over people. You can do scrubs, you can do oils, and that's really wonderful. We started working on the curriculum, and it just kind of, everything in its own time.
Right.
Right. It wasn't its time. So we worked hard on the space. The space is wonderful. The offices are separate from the space, because that was the thought of the college, that all of the directors should be in pretty much a central area, so as not to create silos.
Right.
But it worked well. Then you didn't have students running in and out of your office constantly.
And then you also have space so that people can sign in for
We have a
clinicals.
waiting room.
Yes.
It's incredible. A separate parking lot for our clinical people. a waiting room, so the students who are learning how to do the business end of it, they sit behind a desk, they check people in, they collect the money. We started using credit cards, which we hadn't done until, maybe about the 6th, 7th, 8th year, something like that. And that waiting room was wonderful. People were like, whoa, It really brought the level of professionalism up.
The space you designed.
The space we designed,
was
absolutely. We knew, as users, we knew what we wanted. And so I said, I'm going to shoot for the moon, and we did.
Right. Are there any other anecdotes that you'd like to share with us? We've talked a little bit about the building of your clinic that the first year over in North Annex.
Right. Trying to think.
As you've...
I'll tell you one of the things that is important to me, whether, lots of funny things have happened, lots of meaningful things have happened. We had almost every year for the first 4 or 5 years, we had someone get pregnant in the class, and they're either this pregnant, when they graduate. And we had one gal that came into the program like 5 months pregnant. She literally had her baby over winter break and was back to school in January.
Now that's good planning.
Now that's dedication, and she is still a working therapist. She is still a working therapist. But I think the thing that that touches me the most is students who will say it changed my life. It changed my life. I think education on almost all levels changes people's lives, but ours is more than just book education. And so when they do self-exploration. One of the classes was keeping a journal with really poignant questions being asked every week for them to explore in their journal entries. There's actually a book that we used, and it was a credit class. It was taken the first semester, and it was just one of those things that people never forget. It changes your life, and you meet friends that you're going to have for the rest of your life. I see students and they'll go, oh, do you ever see? And I go, no, I don't. Do you? Oh, yeah, all the time. Because I wasn't part of their class.
Right.
But they see each other and they network with each other and they take care of each other. And when they write you, I love it when your birthday's on Facebook and they write and they go, you changed my life. And you go, wow, that's big. Because that's how I feel about, like, the woman that taught me body work when I went to school. I remember one year I was at an American Massage Therapy Association, AMTA, Illinois chapter meeting, and I had to give a little speech. And I said, now that I'm running a massage school, I mostly remember my body work teacher because she taught body work in the school I was going to. She worked at Elgin Community Hospital as a therapist in their wellness center, plus she had a private practice. And so people would say to her, why are you teaching more students? They're going to, what are you doing bringing more therapists into the area? And she would say, there are 3 million people in the Fox Valley region. I can't do all of them myself. And so that was kind of like my closer, and it was kind of cute, and I meant every word of it, and I got down off the podium, and she was in the audience. And I didn't know it because I hadn't seen her. And she said, I love you so much. I said, no, I love you so much. Because it's true. People say, the market's getting flooded. No, it's not. You have to go with the whole law of abundance. There's a place for everyone because they're all different. Somebody wants to just do pregnant women. Somebody just wants to work with athletes. I work in my home and I only work on a limited number of people. And I love it. And I still love it. 20 years later, I still love it. My thumbs are still loving it. That's important. When I became a massage therapist, the average length professional life was about 7 years. And I know therapists now that have been working for 15, 16. I've been working 19 years. So
because they're taking care of
we take better care of ourselves. We taught a lot of self-care. Taught a lot of self-care. And if your body wears out, you have to kind of take a look at how you were working. And everything happens for a reason.
In addition to your work in the massage therapy program, you were also involved with several other things that I would like to talk with you about. Talk to us about interest-based bargaining.
Interest-based bargaining.
IBB.
IBB was developed at Harvard School of Business back in the late 80s, early 90s. Does that sound right? I don't know. Interest-based bargaining is what was used by the support staff union of SECA, Support Staff of Elgin Community College Association, the union of support staff. And interest-based bargaining is a way to enter into negotiations for a new contract. It's not adversarial. It's not us against them. It's not keeping secrets from each other so that I know I've got this pot of money, but we don't want them to know how much we have. It's not that. Interest-based means, say you are administration, which in the past was you're the bad guy, and I am the union member, which means me and my folk are the good guys. We said no. But when we get to the table to bargain a contract, we are equals. And we are not only equals, we all have needs. And I want to understand your needs as the administrator, and you want to understand mine and my folks as workers at the college. And we went into training together. We sat, over in the Business Conference Center and got IBB training. And it was wonderful because we got to know these people while we were in training, and then we went to the table together. And the interest-based would be, let's say the CFO would say, here's the impact of any pay raises, and this is what we have going on next year and the year after that, and this is where we are, and we're really lucky because we've been able to save this much money because of whatever. And we'd say, this group of employees and this group of employees are really underpaid. So I think one of the first years we entered into a job evaluation, so that we would take a look at what other people who did jobs were getting paid, and a lot of people got raises. And that was done as interest-based bargaining. It went into the contract. The college will conduct a job survey, page survey in the next 18 months. And that was in the contract, so they had to do it. And they wanted to do it because they don't want people not getting paid what they're worth.
Right.
And it's not easy because not a lot of people understand how important it is. And it takes a special kind of person. The other union at the college still stayed with adversarial bargaining, and it made a big difference. We would hear what's going on, and they would hear what we're doing, and it depends upon your leadership. If your leadership wants nothing to do with understanding what the other person has and needs, and it won't happen then. Both people have to buy in. But I think SECA, after a while I was out of SECA, moved into management, but I think I bargained 2 contracts and was a grievance officer at one point. So, union is always really close to my heart, because union is it's not about just you and me making good money. It's about you and me and all these other people that are working for the common good, making a decent living. You don't negotiate your own salary just because you think you're worth more. And jobs are only worth so much. This job needs a bachelor's degree. You decide to get your master's degree, I'm really sorry, we can't pay you more because this job. And that's, that goes against a lot of people's sense of logic and their sensibilities. But some work doesn't need a master's degree. Some work doesn't even need a bachelor's degree. But if you go on and finish all your degrees, you're not going to get more money here because of it.
Right.
So maybe, it's time to find something that might even work better for you. Because if I'm doing this job and you're doing the exact same job over here, we should be getting paid the same. Seniority makes a difference how long you've been in the job. So if I started 6 years ago and you're just coming in, I'm going to be making more than you, but we're going to be moving along at the same pace.
Right.
So I really like that concept. That's my sensibility. It's my sensibility.
You were also involved with the Culinary Arts Center. Can you talk some about that?
Yeah, that was when I was working at VPAC, because they were moving the Culinary Arts Center to be at the other end of the building, of the VPAC building. And so we started entering into lots of conversations for dinner and theater. And so I was lucky enough to be called in to be a little bit on their planning and user committees. What do they need? And we didn't really need much, in terms of the theater, but it was nice to know what they had. And I was there were some meetings where I took notes and did a little bit of facilitating, but mostly they were, it was nice to be involved in that. Talk about getting out of your silo. I was working, the performing arts, and I got to sit on these wonderful planning meetings for that beautiful culinary center. But we used that center a lot for theater and dinner. which is just, and then we had the small theater there, the black
Right.
box theater.
Right.
And so, they would set up just drinks and desserts in the back of the black box, and they were right there.
Yeah.
We didn't have to be schlepping food halfway across a campus. So it's a perfect location for the Culinary Center.
Right.
Plus, they do a wonderful, to go?
Oh, Spartan to go.
Spartan to go. Our students, our daytime students in the massage program, I would get the notice. They'd come running in at 11 o'clock. Is Spartan to go going to be open today? And they'd run down and they'd get their food and then they'd eat their lunch. So it became something that not just staff, but students loved too.
Nice place.
Great place.
Before we go on to your retirement, are there any staff members or special programs or anything else you'd like to recall?
Well, I think I've spoken about Stuart, because he really was the impetus. And part of that story is usually, he came to me 3 times, and the 4th time he came on his knees. I was sitting in the cafeteria, and he literally, about 20 feet from me, got down on his knees and was crawling towards me, And he really, because Stuart sees no dark clouds. Mm-hmm. He always knows there's sunshine behind him. And so he just kept pushing. And that's how we got it done. I think we pushed a little too hard in the beginning, and we worked really, really hard, but it worked, and that's the important thing. You were dean at that time too, so you and I worked together in that, and there were times that I couldn't have made it through that without you, and so that Polly Nash, that's a name I'll mention. I remember Judy Job saying when she came to our clinics, "That's the best massage I've ever had," and that was probably a 2nd or 3rd semester students, and we heard that all the time. Mm-hmm. This is better than like spa massages I've gotten.
Right.
And I just, it's like a proud mom, it's just because they were great. The kids were just great. Students. There were students that were older than me, and it's always amazing to meet people that want to change their lives and do different things. They never stop learning. It was fun once we moved over to the A building, the health professions building, getting to know the other program directors, nursing and X-ray and the dental. My office was right across from the dental assisting program, so she and I talked a lot. Because in the beginning, when I came to ECC, I was a Elgin Symphony person working at ECC. I knew almost no one. ESO people would go to lunch together, and we'd walk back to our offices, and that was it. And so slowly to get to know more ECC people was really wonderful. Mm-hmm. Students always. There are people that stand out in your mind. I saw a student shopping the other day, and we kind of passed each other, and then we both turned around, and we went, "That is you!" Yeah. She'd been in class maybe, 8-10 years ago, and she and her husband just bought a chiropractic business.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I think that's just incredible. I said, "You're still working?" She goes, "Oh, yeah." We just bought a chiro business. I said, "Oh, so he's a chiro?" And she goes, "Yep." So, to see those things is just really, really wonderful.
So talk to me about your decision to retire and what you've been doing.
Oh, it was time. It was time. What have I been doing? I've been retired 6 years, which is like, I can't even imagine that happened so fast. Just on a real personal note, the first 2 years I was home, my mother-in-law lived with us, and so she was declining, so my first couple of years was a lot of doctor appointments and, kind of just being with her. She could no longer drive, so it was pretty much providential, because I don't know if she'd have declined like that if I was still working, or if my working somehow she could take a deep breath and let her body go. So that happened. I went to volunteer over at St. Joe's, went back to my hospital base, and I'm just volunteering at a reception desk. I love it. It's both social and a little bit involved in people's medical care and walking them to departments. And, it's nice to, when they say I'm here for this or that, to know what it is and that sort of thing. So I love that. And then I have a small practice in my home. I see maybe a dozen or so clients, sometimes once a week, sometimes every other week, sometimes once a month. It doesn't matter. But it keeps my hand in it, and I love it as much now as I did 20 years ago. As a matter of fact, sometimes I think I love it more because I've learned more. I was just calling this morning to get in on a continuing education class in September, and it was wonderful. It's wonderful. I really do love being retired. I miss the people. I don't miss the stress. Yeah. And I'll bet you've never heard that before. You know, you meet someone in a grocery store and they go, man, you look 5 years younger. Oh, I've been gone 5 months from the college. You know, and it's true. You know, more time for yourself. I have a lot of pajama days and grandchildren. We have 2 daughters that live locally, so 3 of our grandchildren are very local. We have 2 that are in St. Charles and 2 in Indianapolis. So the ones that are close we see all the time, but we have 2 2-year-olds, and that's the best.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take you back to, or take us all back to why did I become a massage therapist. I really became a massage therapist when I had my children, and I realized how important it was, how touch is so important. Children will literally shrivel and die, either emotionally, spiritually, or actually, if they're not touched. And yesterday, my one grandson, who's 2, was over, and we were watching TV on the big bed, Grandma. So we went in the bedroom, and he's jumping, and he's playing. And I said, now lay down here. And he laid down by me, and he lays on his tummy, and he goes, rub me. So, you rub his back, and you rub his legs, and that's why I did it. And that's very basic. That's very basic, but they know how important touch is.
Even at that young age.
Grandma, rub me.
Wow.
Okay, little bitty shoulder blades. They're sweet, and they love to be touched.
Yeah.
Boy, we're so lucky.
So as we conclude,
Yes.
Could you do some reflections on your career with Elgin Community College, your program, your teaching, whatever comes to your mind in terms of reflecting on that time?
Wow. Yeah. Yes, I can. I'm always amazed at the fact that I went to school here and then ended up teaching here and ended up retiring from here. Probably because I did not finish a bachelor's degree. Life and children interfered. I never thought I would teach. I didn't know I could teach until I started teaching, and I love teaching. That's what I miss the most. I do miss the people, but I really miss the teaching. So when I have clients, I teach. Clients will come to me with something, and I'll say, well, this is why this is happening. Let's take a look at this picture in this anatomy book. This is why, even though it's this muscle that hurts you, this is why your back is hurting. So, it's kind of like teachable moments, which I've always believed in, even with my children. You know yourselves, children present you with teachable moments all the time if you're paying attention. So I really think that it taught me, and this is really funny to say, degrees aren't everything. They really aren't. I have lots of friends who have high levels of degree. I have a brother-in-law who's a doctor, and 2 of his children are doctors, and I have friends who are doctors, and I have people in my life who are highly educated, and I've always felt a small or larger amount of regret and sometimes shame for not finishing degrees, because I was capable. I had the potential. But I raised beautiful children who are contributing to their community and are raising beautiful children themselves. And this small little piece of the universe that I was given by Stu Wasilowski, I didn't have any idea what it would become. And when I handed it over, which I didn't really do, but I really did. When I handed it over to Lorana, I knew she'd make it better. I knew she would keep intact those things that were really important. I'm hoping that, that grounding in understanding that touching a body is more than just touching skin. Mm-hmm. And so having a practice at home reminds me of that. That, when I lay my hands on someone, it's more than just touching their skin. They bring everything they are to my table. Everything they are. And that's why it's my obligation to bring everything that I am to my table too. To make sure that they feel the connection, that they go away with whatever degree of healing they can. And I've always told my students this too. There are certain things you always say to students, always. See this table? That's sacred space. Sacred space. Nothing happens on that table except a massage. It's sacred space. You don't fool around on that table. You don't do anything that breaches the professional ethics that you will soon be professing and signing to. The other things I would say is don't ever believe your clients when they tell you it's the best massage they ever got or it's the worst massage they ever got. Don't believe them either way. You have to know that you're bringing the best to your table. And sometimes, we teach students to let their head go and let the knowledge just come through. Mm-hmm. Knowledge through the heart, out to the hands, and that's it. That's body, mind, and spirit.
Well, thank you, Deb. I appreciate the
You're
time
welcome.
you've spent with us. I think that it's important that we know through this oral history of the program that you built, that learning to touch body, mind, and spirit is your PhD.
Thank you.
That you changed your students' lives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.